boys and girls, persons of all ages, welcome to the most exclusive group in the wrestling community. And now, your hosts, first, from Oahu, Puerto Rico, Macho Rodriguez, and his tag team partner from Moncton, New Brunswick, Canada, God's King, Tyler.
Hello, mi gente. Welcome to a special first of the year edition of Must Love Wrestling. Let's start off with that. Tyler, how was your New Year's?
It's pretty good. I chilled here at the apartment, watched the Packers beat the snot out of the Vikings.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it was very exciting for me as well. I was able to watch the Niners clinch the number 1 seed thanks to the Arizona Cardinals. That was very exciting. So we did see Baltimore completely mollywop the Dolphins. Did not expect that exact outcome. But yeah, it was very quiet, uneventful. Watched 3 movies with the fam. Watched About Time. Watched Evan Almighty and Knives Out. 3 completely
Knives Out
different
is
movies.
so good.
Yeah, it was so good. That was the end of our night. It finished right at 11:58. So we were to watch the fireworks. It was pretty exciting. But we are here to talk about World's End, which was the last pay-per-view of the year. Before we get started with the actual comments in our review of this show, why don't you tell us what your initial reaction was about AEW World's End?
It happened. There was some good stuff, some not so good stuff. As far as AEW's pay-per-views go, I think from a top to bottom perspective, it was one of the weaker ones.
I agree with you. It definitely wasn't a stronger pay-per-view. I felt like this pay-per-view needed the last 3 matches for it to actually come out as a good show, because the beginning felt like, an episode of Raw or Dynamite. It didn't really feel special to me, and it was supposed to be the last show of the year.
Right, and it doesn't help when you've got a substitute in Dustin for Keith Lee. Although Dustin's a great worker, no one's gonna believe that he's gonna have a competitive match with Swerve at this point.
But it was a pretty competitive match. I mean, him and Swerve did really have a solid match. It just looked like 2 vets out there.
It was a good TV match.
Yeah, agreed. But we'll touch on that. Why don't we get started? We'll just run through some of the actual wins and losses, and then we will, after we run through that, we will kind of stop and talk about our favorite matches of the night. So the show starts off with Willow Nightingale versus Chris Statlander. And that was a really solid match. They continue to use Willow in a shining way, and Chris is a phenomenal in-ring performer. So the two of these women, they're really good together. They have a great chemistry. I'm excited for what happens in 2024 for both of these. I do believe that Willow will be an AEW Women's Champion by the end of 2024. And I wouldn't be surprised if Chris moves into that title picture, because she also has a great gimmick about her, especially with like the ASL that she uses. I think that can speak to people outside of professional wrestling. And we've seen a lot of athletes from like DK Metcalf and Tyler Pepper in the NFL who use the ASL language to communicate and stuff. So I think it's really exciting that we have another professional athlete willing to use that and willing to use their platform that way.
Yeah, it's definitely it's great when people are, other people are included that otherwise maybe wouldn't feel that way. So that's really tremendous for her. Yep. And yeah, I think if there's one thing AEW should do right now, it's push people like that who are going to be, good role models.
I completely agree. Now, speaking of pushes that probably shouldn't have happened, we have probably the weakest match on the entire card, which was for the FTW Championship, and it was Hook versus Wheeler Yuta. Yeah. Uh, as you have coined the phrase here on our show, this was fine.
Yeah. The one thing that I thought was kind of cool about it, it was we've got Yuta, who's the pure champion, and we've got Nigel, who's the longest reigning pure champion on commentary, and then Hook, obviously being Taz's son, as the FTW champion, and then we've got Taz on commentary, the longest reigning FTW champion.
Yeah, that was a pretty nice little mirrored moment. Yeah, it was pretty cool. But this match was what it was. I mean, Wheeler is still they have not put in the time and effort in Wheeler the way that we thought they would. He hasn't had enough time to work on television. I don't believe he's had a lot of I don't believe he's had a lot of matches this year. I believe, like, when we're talking about the other company, Dom has had over 100 matches this year. I think that's something that should have been done with Wheeler to just get him more time. But moving on to there, we'll talk about the 20-man battle royal for the TNT title shot, and Killswitch won this, and this was very important to the rest of the show. It was not the outcome I was expecting, but
who were you thinking was going to win?
I thought Wardlow was going to win. I didn't know that it was for the TNT. I thought
Wardlow
it was for a title shot. Yeah, he wasn't.
Wardlow wasn't in it, was he?
No, he was not. No.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Killswitch won, and we'll just stop there because we'll talk about how important it was for Killswitch to win this later on when we dissect a match that I think both you and I are excited to talk about. On from there, we have the 8-man tag, which had Bryan Danielson, Claudio, Mark Briscoe, and Daniel Garcia defeating Brody King, Jay White, Jay Lethal, and Rush. I mean, in terms of 8-man tags, this was a better one for AEW, I would say, but I was very excited on how the crowd popped for Bryan and Jay White to be in the ring together. It almost made me a little annoyed. It was almost like they knew what final we wanted for the Continental Classic, and they didn't give it to us. And they were like, you know what? We didn't give you that final, but we're going to give you a good 7-minute portion of these two just going at it with each other.
Yeah, I mean, with that much talent in there, it's going to be hard for them to have a bad match. It was a match that, to me, it was like, well, it doesn't really matter, but you know, it's got these guys on the pay-per-view, and with that much talent, it's pretty hard to screw it up.
Yeah. I love the fact that Daniel Garcia took most of the heat for the match. I thought that was great. The one negative about it is it didn't really feel like the crowd was somewhat behind him, and that I found was weird. Like, usually when a guy takes that much heat, the crowd is chanting, like, you know, you would think that they chant like Daniel Garcia, like, you know, whatever chant that they could come up with. They didn't really seem too interested.
I wonder if he has some of the stink on him.
Maybe, but we're not going to touch on that today. We're just going to gloss over that. Feel like that'll extend our show by like an hour and a half. Moving on from there, Moving on from there, we have a match that it was compared to WrestleMania 20's Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar, as both of these superstars are rumored to be leaving the company. We had Miro versus Andrade El Idolo. And this was really solid. I mean, not too exciting. I think the most exciting thing happened probably at the end when CJ Perry smacked out Andrade's hand. You know, that and he cost him the match. We got like whatever Miro's super kick is called, and he won the match. That was pretty much it.
When are they going to do more with that guy?
With Miro?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like,
I mean, if we're just gonna,
I don't understand. Like, WWE, they thought the whole Rusev thing was the crowd. Rusev Day thing was the crowd laughing at him. AEW, he appears out of thin air every few months, whether we need him to or not.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of dumb.
Yeah, it's not great. I mean, here we have some news, potential breaking news that Andrade Idolo's contract is officially up with AEW. That was his last match that was on his contract. He's officially a free agent, and there's lots of reports. PW Insider said we can see him as soon as day one in WWE, which is their Monday Night Raw this year, which would mean
That's
that
tonight, right?
yes, that is tonight. So, which would mean that he would re-debut on the Raw roster immediately. I mean, a great NXT champion. Triple H seemed like he didn't want this guy to go. We've seen that he has been able to fix guys like Shinsuke Nakamura. And to be quite honest, if Triple H wanted to do something special, um, just to keep her on television, to keep her relevant, but to keep her in a different capacity, I wouldn't mind Charlotte being moved into a manager role for now with Andrade.
Yeah, if she wants to.
I mean, we'll see, but I can see Charlotte talking for him, especially like, having ample feuds with different superstars. I think it would be great. But moving on to the AEW Women's Championship match, which was given more time than Tony's last match, we had timeless Tony Storm versus Riho. And yeah, I mean, I was pretty satisfied with this match. I thought Tony played a really good part. I think at this point, if you're looking for catch can or strong style or technical ability out of Tony Storm, you're not going to get that. Does she have the ability to give you that? Absolutely. We have seen it happen. But I think at this point, she is character driven, and that's what we got yesterday, or that's what we got Saturday night. So I really enjoyed this match.
Yeah, to me, I really liked it when she started acting crazy and throwing shoes at people and stuff. To me, it's gone a little far, but
really,
she did have a funny moment in the scrum. But
yeah, I mean,
did you see the scrum? The scrum where everyone thinks she's going to call out Mercedes and she calls out Wendy Richter?
Yes, but she did play that really well with her with mentioning money as much as she mentioned it. I thought that was really smart. I really enjoyed.
Yeah, she's definitely really smart. I just the black and white and the like acting all ditzy, like she doesn't know who people are, and
yes, love it.
Okay.
Well. Yeah, definitely enjoy it. Definitely loved it. Moving on from here, we have the match that probably. Ooh, we got a strong comment in the chat here from Kervin Abreu, who says AEW Worlds End bad night for women's matches, not good. Well, Kervin, I mean, as I said before, thank you for the comment, by the way. Thank you for watching. As I said before, I don't think we were meant to have a technically sound match. I think this was geared toward the theatrics. That is what Tony Storm's character is right now. I mean, I think that's what we're looking to get for the moment. And unfortunately, there isn't any women in AEW at the moment that can really hold a candle to what Tony Storm's able to do in the ring. So we don't really have someone who's going to go in there and who's going to keep up with her unless the rumors are true and Mercedes debuts at Dynamite.
Okay. Yeah, and as far as the other women's match, which I think we're about to get to. We had Dustin versus Swerve before that, didn't we?
Yeah, we have 2 matches before then, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that in a minute. I think other than the finish, I thought it was fine.
But... Yeah, I mean, it was fine. Next, we'll move on to Sting's final appearance in New York City as a professional wrestler, as Sting, Darby Allin, Chris Jericho, and Sammy Guevara versus Ricky Starks, Big Bill, Powerhouse Hobbs, and Takeshita. This match, I gotta be honest with you, AEW has done a really great job of protecting older talent. The way that they have Sting kind of come in just for the hot tag, and he comes in and he just does what he needs to do just enough. And they also protected Jericho in more ways than one, but they've also protected Jericho by not having him do too much. You've kind of let Darby and Sammy
Can't
take
say
the
that when
brunt
I'm
of it.
drinking.
Oh, sorry. They
Almost had a
did a great job of
spoonful.
having Darby and Sammy kind of take the brunt of the heat and stuff like that. Big fan of Ricky Starks, big fan of Powerhouse Hobb, Big Bill, and Takeshita. That's a great 4-person team. Would like to see that team kind of become something, but obviously uh they're all kind of broken up because Takeshita and Powerhouse Hobbs, I believe, are a part of Team Callus, right?
Yes, and the other two are on their
So
own.
yeah, and the other two are on
Do we know what
their
happened to
own.
Kyle Fletcher? Why he was replaced by Takeshita?
No, I genuinely believe that at the time, I genuinely believe that Kyle Fletcher was going to defend his championship, but that didn't happen either. Um,
Yeah.
yes, we have another comment from Kervin. Let's see. Tony Khan still has not figured out how to make a pay per view, how to make his pay per views not long. Yeah, I agree with you. This was a pretty long pay per view, and it felt long. That was the problem. When you have a mediocre beginning and they don't have something hot, I think that it jeopardizes the rest of the show. We're going to talk now about Swerve versus Dustin Rhodes. We're going to move into that match. And I believe, just my honest opinion, that Swerve was meant to open the show with Keith Lee, which I think would have rocked the house. I think the two of these guys
Probably, yeah.
perform really well together. And I think that this would have been a great way to get New York City up on their feet. But unfortunately, Keith Lee misses due to personal reasons or a illness, and he is replaced by Dustin Rhodes. It doesn't look like Dustin was given
He
enough
wasn't
time to
cleared.
prep for
Yeah.
this match. Yeah, he was. And him and Swerve went out there. They put on a good 8-9 minute match. Swerve looks like $1,000,000, but in the way that Rhea Ripley does in WWE, whenever she squashes people, Swerve did really well in making Dustin look good. He let him get all his stuff in. We saw the shattered dreams in the corner. We saw the crossroads. We saw the drop down uppercut. I mean, we saw Dustin get his stuff in that he's done throughout his entire career, and still Swerve comes out with the victory here. So it's awesome to see
Yeah.
Swerve not lose a match like this. But what a great pro to have him give Dustin the limelight.
Sure, and can we give Dustin some flowers for being, how old is he, and still being damn good?
Yeah, absolutely. He is 1000% the natural. He is a natural at this. Yes. For those of you that don't know, that you're not old enough, the natural was his WCW moniker. The natural Dustin Reynolds. He was and will forever be phenomenal. One of
I think
those
he's one of the
guys.
most underrated guys of all time.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. In
Yeah.
terms of in-ring performer, he's the better Rhodes out of the three.
Yeah, I
Like,
would give him that. Yeah, I would say so.
yeah. Mhm. So moving on from there, we're going to talk about the next women's match, which is the TBS Championship, which is Julia Hart versus Abaddon. I believe that Willow and Chris was meant to be a wrestling match, and then I believe that the two championship matches for the actual pay-per-view were meant to be theatrical. We have Abaddon, who is pretty much her horror movie character, but she can work a little bit. It reminds me a lot of a female version of the Boogeyman. And Julia Hart, who is playing, God rest his soul, playing a Bray Wyatt type role where she is the leader of her own little faction and she doesn't need to do much because for her, it's more character driven than it is in ring performance. Julia's
I
come
was
a really
entertained.
long way. Yeah, I was entertained by this as well. Julia's come a really long way, and it was pretty exciting.
And I want to go ahead and give props, as I texted you. I want to give props to the commentators for referring to Abaddon by their proper pronouns.
Mm-hmm.
We don't always see that, and I was really happy. That was something I noticed. Everything except for the finish, which was a little bit of a screw up in this match.
Mm-hmm.
I was entertained and had positive things to say.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so the next match of the evening is for the TNT Championship, and it was Adam Copeland trying to become the next TNT champion, wrestling his longtime buddy, foe, frenemy, you would say, Christian Cage. Before we talk about this match, I just want to give flowers to AEW. I have definitely on our show here been the AEW negative Nancy. I've been the guy who has poo-pooed a lot of what AEW does, and I want to make this perfectly clear. I made this comment on a TikTok earlier today, and I wanted to say it on our show as well. AEW has given us something that WWE could not and would never. They have finally given us a phenomenal Edge versus Christian feud. And I'm just going to use Edge for a second. I'm just going to say Edge for a second. I'll go back to saying Adam Copeland. I have never been more invested in Edge versus Christian in my entire life as a professional wrestling fan. For me, I felt like this was an indicator of two guys who are just super pros who were like, let's just go out there and have the type of match we want to have. And it reminded me very much of Edge versus Mick Foley. And I'm not saying that Jay Russo is not a better performer than Mick Foley. What I'm going to say is that it looked like they were given the liberty to just go out there and take care of each other. I was very excited. I never got the satisfaction of Edge versus Christian in WWE, WWF, whatever you wanted to call it at the time. But I was definitely satisfied, and I'm excited for what's next because as we saw, the championship change hands twice, and it looks like we're in the middle of this story. So, Tyler, what did you think of this match?
Yeah, I thought it was really good. I was on the other side where I was kind of hoping that this would be the blow off because I want to see Adam go work with some other people.
Yeah.
Just because I want to see him work with some people that I've never seen him work with before.
Yes.
But yeah, they've been doing good work, so I don't have a problem with them continuing it. I liked Adam's post and knew until I wasn't.
Yeah.
That was
it's great.
His Instagram post.
Yeah. Social media has played a really big part in this type of stuff. I mean, these two guys don't really use social media in that limelight, but it has definitely played a big part in selling wrestling feuds. I mean, we saw this morning the way Triple H tweeted out about it's been 5 years coming for Nia and Becky for later tonight. I'm assuming that match is probably going to end in a schmoz, but we'll talk about that at another point. I want to touch on Kervin's comment here. For me, the TNT match should have opened the show. I agree with you. Yeah, I mean, I think that Swerve and Keith Lee would have been a better opener, but with Keith missing, I think this would have been smart. Open the show with a bang because this was the match of the night. And we've seen that happen for AEW. At Wembley, their match of the night was Punk and Joe. That was the opening match. So, I mean, we've seen that happen and get the fans excited. So, what do you think of that comment, Tyler?
Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with it. I agree. I'm always a proponent of opening with something that's going to get the crowd into. What was the opener again? I don't remember.
The opening match was the Bryan Danielson, Claudio, Mark Briscoe, Daniel Garcia versus Brody King, Jay White, Jay Lee.
Okay, so you figure that's gonna, you got Bryan and you got Jay White, and you figure that's gonna get the crowd going. But yeah, I wouldn't have had a problem with opening with that. Even if you had opened with Swerve versus Dustin, just Swerve's music is gonna get the crowd going, and then from there you know what I mean?
100%. I agree with you. Yeah.
He's a baby face now. I mean, even in the scrum, like he's answering questions like a baby face.
I agree. Yes. Yeah. We'll touch on the scrum a little bit at the end of this because I really want to talk about what Samoa Joe was able to do at the end, and I definitely, for me, Samoa Joe was the MVP of the entire night, and I want to give him so many flowers. I want to give my quick story about Samoa Joe because it means the world to me. But moving on, let's talk about the Continental Classic as Eddie Kingston defeated Jon Moxley to become the first ever Triple Crown champion in this era. And he is now being called the Continental Champion, the AEW Continental Champion. So they aren't even calling him the Triple Crown Champ. He does have 3 titles, but apparently these three titles are now one. I'm wondering how NJPW feels about that because he is the strong champion over there. but I can see
I mean, they would
how
have had to agree to it, right?
yeah, you would think that they would. I can see how the Ring of Honor Championship just kind of ceases to exist because it looks like slowly but surely they're kind of getting rid of that promotion and kind of just melding it all into AEW. But this match for me was not even close to as good as their previous match. It was solid. I mean, I love both of these guys. I was excited to see them beat the living crap out of each other, and I couldn't. I don't know if it was you or if it was one of the guys from that Biconics that actually said that they thought that the story of this match was going to be them just refusing to quit until finally one couldn't go anymore. And that's not really the story that we were given. It was just the backhand and Moxley takes the clean pin, like, and they celebrate together afterwards. But what did you think of this match?
Yeah, I mean, like we talked about with a couple other matches, I think it's more story driven than it was to be a technical classic. The whole point of this tournament obviously was to make Eddie Kingston.
Mm-hmm.
And like to make him on a level of like, okay, you're not the world champion, but we're going to give you this, and this makes you one of our top stars.
Agreed. Yeah.
So they did that.
Yeah, they did a really great job there. And now having Eddie be a Continental Champion or Triple Crown Champion, whatever you fancy to call him, now it kind of keeps him away from the world title. Now you kind of have the world champion going out there and being able to face new, more exciting matchups instead of having Eddie once again ignore his duties or having the company make Eddie ignore his duties as a champion, because now he's a champion of 3 different brands,
Right.
pretty much AEW, NJPW, and Ring of Honor. But moving on to the main event of the evening, this match was about, I would say, like 15 minutes. I was trying to clock it. I watched it again this morning. This match was 15 minutes as we saw Samoa Joe become the 7th AEW champion as he defeated Maxwell Jacob Friedman in a pretty solid match. I think I gotta say one of my favorite moments of this match has to be Max hitting him with the F5. That's one of the greatest moves of all time. And see anybody hit the F5 on Samoa Joe is an amazing feat. But what were your thoughts of this match before we talk about what happened at the end?
I mean, I think they told the story well of Max being hurt and Joe's working on the arm. But then Max is also working on the arm on Joe for a while there. And he's trying to lift him, he's trying to slam him, he's trying to I thought they told the story well. I thought they had a solid match. It was a little, but I don't think it needed to be any longer.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think for you to accentuate MJF's injury, this had to be a shorter match. If not,
right, and it protects the finish protects Max because like he didn't tap out, he passed out.
Agreed. It was very smart. I also thought that MJF caught a lot of flack for the way he performed in his match with Jay White, how he kind of ignored his injuries and kind of just wrestled like Super Cena style. And he did the opposite of that, which is something that I have to give credit to Max for doing, is that he's able to learn from mistakes of the past and he's able to do something different. I know a lot of people had negative things to say about that running diamond cutter to the outside and how would he be able to do that with his knee injury, and he didn't play up the knee injury, and they're breaking down professional wrestling as if it just like an actual video game or something. Like, it doesn't make sense. Why did I go into this room if there was nothing in there? Like, sometimes wrestling can just be wrestling. It doesn't need to absolutely make sense. But getting back to this match, I would say Samoa Joe did a really great job. If you look at everything he did to Max, he hits him with a muscle buster to the outside, to the apron, on his messed up shoulder. He protected him really. It looked brutal, but you could tell he protected him really well. I mean, I'm sure it hurt a little bit, but he was well protected. I love the inclusion of Adam Cole. As soon as I saw Adam Cole come out there, I knew Max was losing. That's how I felt about it. I was like, oh, we're getting the devil tonight, which we'll talk about now. So we see.
I never in a million years thought he was going to lose.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't think Max was going to lose. I think I actually picked him to win. But when I saw Adam Cole come out, I thought to myself, there's no reason for him to be out here. But it made a lot of sense to me because Adam Cole is the one who manipulated him into actually wrestling Samoa Joe by kind of telling him, like, calling him out for not being a man, saying, like, you made a commitment, Max. Like, now you have to wrestle this man. And we're going to touch on some positives and negatives here in about a second here, but let's talk about what happened. So Samoa Joe puts the coquina clutch on MJF. MJF reverses a classic Bret Hart Rowdy Piper style. And once Joe kind of like pops his hips up like a classic collegiate wrestler and puts the coquina clutch back on him, wraps his legs around him. So Max has nowhere to go, and Max passes out. I mean, the ref was shocked as well, which I thought, Tyler, we have to talk about that referee. Can you not be honest with me for a second? Did the referee's reaction almost like work you a little bit? Like, it was almost like the ref didn't know Max was going to lose the match.
Yeah, because so they ring the bell, right?
Uh-huh.
And I'm just like, okay, but did he lose the title? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yes.
And then they give it to Joe, and I'm like, well, okay, cool.
Yeah, I thought it was brilliant. The way the referee was almost like, because his arm landed on his leg. It landed on Samoa Joe's leg, and I was thinking like, oh, is he awake? Is he done? And the ref looked like, what? And then he just called for the bell, and Samoa Joe popped up with, elation. He was very excited about everything, and he pulled the championship up, and he left. And this is when things got interesting, because as Samoa Joe, who just defeated the longest reigning AEW champion in the company's 5-year history, he doesn't celebrate for very long. He just rolls up out of there and he leaves. And I thought it was very interesting because last week Samoa Joe did a interview on a podcast with Nico Extra, who is a friend of mine on TikTok. And when he did the interview with Nico Extra, Nico asks him flat out, are you affiliated with the devil? And he said, no, I'm not at all. So he worked him. He worked him on his interview. Love that about Samoa Joe. Love it. And what I thought was really cool was that as he leaves the devil's minions or the demons or whatever you call it, I don't know. I'm not very biblical myself, so I don't know what the devil's, what the people are called in the underworld. But they come out, they grab Adam Cole, they grab a chair, and then right as we are seeing this, the lights go out. The lights turn back on, and Adam Cole is sitting there on the chair that he was about to be smacked with. As Max is pleading, they're pleading for each other's case. Hit me, no hit me, no hit me, no hit me. And it is revealed that the 5 men that have been attacking the AEW locker room are Adam Cole, the leader, Wardlow, Trent Seven, Mike Bennett, and Roderick Strong. So now we know that the Ring of Honor champions, tag team champions, are Trent Seven and Mike Bennett. So good for those guys. I think Trent just kind of signed with the company, so that's awesome. He won a title right away. Good for him. And I mean, they beat Max down as Adam Cole celebrates. Tyler, what is your initial thoughts about this entire thing? Like, I know you had some comments about it Saturday night, so why don't you share with our viewers what you think about this?
So I thought it was well done.
Mm-hmm.
My only thing was, if Adam Cole is the devil and he wants to feud with MJF, why would he then cost him the title?
Interesting. I love this because this is all right. Let's jump into the questions. Let's jump into the comments by wrestling fans alike then. So here were some of the things that were laid out by wrestling fans. One of the things that was said was, as I saw a tweet, excuse me, wasn't it Samoa Joe who broke Roderick Strong's neck? Excuse me, wasn't it Wardlow who said he was coming after Max's title, yet he helps Samoa Joe win the title? And this is what I'm saying. Like, I feel like wrestling fans are looking at this in a literal sense. Like, why are these guys involved? When if you take a step back and you look, it almost makes way more sense because the way Roderick Strong has been screaming Samoa Joe and the way he accentuates his name, and then also with the way Wardlow has been every single time he has a chance to comment, he's been talking about this world championship. We don't know that Samoa Joe is really helped by this group, whatever it's being called. What we do know.
No, I don't think he was affiliated. I think he like kind of paid them, or was like, it's kind of like a mercenary type thing. Like, hey, why don't you guys we'll act like we're gonna fight you, but really I'm gonna, because it said on the screen like, pleasure doing business with you.
Yes.
So at the end of Dynamite.
Yes, which I loved, because then we got the Seth Rollins Roman Reigns Shield angle where he's standing behind him, he hits him with a chair, he's not expecting it, he beats him down, which, as Patty Reekin says over on Working the Marks, that has become a mark thing. That's for marks now. There is no such thing as go home shows anymore. Remember back in our day when we were growing up, if something would have happened like it happened with Samoa Joe, that would be our indicator that Joe was going to lose the match. Oh, he stood tall at the go home show. AEW has been a proponent of erasing that. It's another thing I'm going to give them flowers for. They don't do that. Whoever stands tall is not the person that typically loses at the pay-per-views. And I actually love that, because it leaves us open. We don't know what's going to happen. I'm enjoying it. I think what I enjoyed is the work that's being provided to us afterwards. Now it is being reported by Fightful Select, by PW Insider, that Maxwell Jacob Friedman has been removed from the AEW roster on their website, and his merchandise has been removed from AEW shop on Pro Wrestling Tees. And, they're pretty much telling us that he's gone from the company. Now, do I believe this is true? Absolutely not. But what a great story, right?
Yeah, didn't somebody else try to tell the story one time, and then they waited like 2 weeks and then fucked it up?
Yeah, I mean, I think CM Punk really wanted to accentuate this during the summer of Punk, but Vince said that they were losing money with him not at the company. Yeah. So hopefully AEW does this correctly, because we've seen them go a long time without Max on television. So if he comes back later on, he can come back as a bigger babyface than ever. This is also one of the times. This is the only time Max has ever lost in his hometown since he's been in AEW. So that was a big deal. Another thing that I really enjoyed was the media scrum after. We won't talk about the entire media scrum because, like I said, we touched on a lot of that stuff on our last show.
It was hours.
Yeah, but what I will say is Samoa Joe's little promo in that, Samoa Joe felt like that dude that you were in school with that nobody wanted to mess with. That's what he felt like, because he just like.
You're talking about the everyone picks fights backstage, but nobody's picked a fight with me.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, there was this kid. His name was Eric Fisher. Yeah, same name as the offensive lineman that the Chiefs took a long time ago. His name was Eric Fisher, and that was in Bayonne High School. This dude, the whole school, it would just circle around the school like nobody wanted to fight Eric Fisher. That's what it was. Like, this dude, he would just beat you up, and that's how it kind of was. Like, I don't know. I never even saw his face. I don't even remember what it looks like in my yearbook. I'd have to scrounge to see what it is, but I knew the name. And that's kind of how it felt like Samoa Joe, where it's almost like, yeah, you know what? We'll mess with anybody. We'll jump anybody, but nobody's jumping Joe. And I love that. And I love how he immediately did what you and I have been talking about this on this show, what you and I have been talking about with Patty Reekin and Fernando on Working the Marks, that he right away calls out the two most popular names for the AEW championship, which is Hangman Adam Page and Swerve Strickland. So it was like, you know what? Yeah. These are my next two guys. It was perfect.
Yeah, he said they could both get it. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I love it. I love that. I can definitely see these three headlining a pay-per-view together as a triple threat match. I don't want Joe to lose his title anytime soon. I definitely want him to run through the division. Like, let him actually beat some dudes, because I said this on a TikTok yesterday. This might be the best version of Samoa Joe that we've seen in a very long time. We can't really explain why, unless it's just bad luck. But for some reason, not the majority, but a lot of his time in WWE was mirrored with injury. It's like every time he got somewhere on the card, he sustained an injury and then he had to miss time. And he's been really
Right.
healthy.
Yeah, and he's been given a chance to talk. I mean, I realize he did commentary in WWE, so obviously that's talking, but like his character as a wrestler didn't get that much chance to talk. Whereas here, he's been given the mic a little bit, and he's been doing some of the best work of his career. And I mean, honestly, like here's a guy who hasn't really been a long reigning champion ever, except in Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate because like he's always been a top guy. Who's always been.
Wait, I think he
like
held
full
the Ring of Honor
disclosure, and I know you were
for a very long time.
Well, yeah, that's why I said except in Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
Like TNA, WWE, NXT, whatever, he didn't have real long reigns. I remember being extremely pissed when he lost the title in TNA to Sting with Kevin Nash's. Like, what's the point of that?
Well, I think they were just pushing the main event Mafia.
Yeah.
But
so that's he's been a guy that I've been a fan of for a long time. I know you have a story. I also I met him in an airport when he was TNA champion. He had the belt with him, which was pretty cool. And he was a really nice guy, and so I'm happy for him.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, my first time I saw Samoa Joe was at a Ring of Honor show very early in Ring of Honor's company, and it was him versus Paul London. And we knew at that point that Paul London was going to the WWE. This was considered Paul London's farewell match. And Samoa Joe was the Ring of Honor champion. And I remember thinking, like, everybody was there for Paul London. Everybody was there for Will-O-Wisp, which was, Jeff Hardy, who was actually debuting on this show. And for me, I really thought that Samoa Joe stuck out to me. And I've been able to follow his career ever since then. I've been a very big fan of his. I've loved so many feuds that he's had. I mean, I loved his feuds with AJ Styles in TNA. I loved this feud with Kurt Angle in TNA. I still remember Kurt Angle's debut and that headbutt and everything. That was brilliant. I loved when he came over to NXT that he had that feud with Finn Balor. He had that feud with Shinsuke Nakamura, with Kevin Owens. He moves to the main roster. He cuts that phenomenal promo on Jeff Hardy while they're all getting ready to perform. And Samoa Joe's just always been one of those guys, I've just always felt something about, because it's kind of your thing with Bray Wyatt, right? Like, he doesn't look like everybody else. He looks like an everyday guy. And that's what's so great about him. Like me, I'm like 202 pounds. I'm 5'10", but there was a point where I was 250 pounds at 5'10". And, I've always kind of like looked at guys like that where I was like, wow, man, like this is a guy that I can feel something about. I can feel something towards. I really enjoyed that. Plus I thought his ability to talk, his ability to sell the matches. I love his walk away at a high spot. I loved how he was so agile. There was so much about him that was just so, much to be a part of. He's such a great in-ring performer. I remember being upset. I love Brock Lesnar. He's in my personal Mount Rushmore, as you know, Tyler, as some of our listeners know. But I wanted Brock to drop the title to him at Great Balls of Fire. It didn't happen. I wanted AJ Styles to drop the title to him those 2 times they worked together. It didn't happen. And it always felt like, why didn't this stuff happen? What, it kind of feels like that way with Drew McIntyre now, where he's just going to continue wrestling and just lose every single title match he gets. But
I mean, he's not
I'm
winning
excited that. No, get the hell out of here. No way.
Yeah.
It's Seth versus Punk. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, I'm just very excited about what's to happen in the future with Samoa Joe. I want to see him and Swerve go out there, tear the house down, and I want to see him and Adam Page tear the house down, because I think Adam Page, he's one of the top 3 wrestlers on the planet to me. I know I'm in this bubble all by myself, but
I can't argue that.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of in-ring performance, I just think he's so good, and the best part about him is he has 2 finishers. He does have the buckshot lariat, and then he's got, whatever that reverse tombstone is, and they're both equally as effective. I love them both. Just such a great talent. Like I said, I've talked about it before. If he was on the other company, he'd be the top guy. They like Triple H would.
He reminds me of another Adam about. He reminds me of another Adam about 17, 18 years ago.
Wow. Interesting. That's a great comparison if you're talking about Copeland.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I personally believe that he reminds me of Austin. He's the closest we're going to get to.
There are similarities there as well, yeah.
Yeah. I just early Stone Cold, not after injury Stone Cold. Not like that, but
the way he carries himself. Certainly.
Yes, and it's clear that fans are behind him. I don't think this guy can ever be a heel. You know what? The reason I feel such a kinship with him, he reminds me of 90s Sting. Like, it feels like the fans are going to be behind him for his entire career. I don't think he could do anything. He's a family man, which Sting was for a period of time. He works really well in the ring. He puts over anybody. It doesn't seem like he has a problem putting over anybody. And just like Sting, when he puts over people, it doesn't ruin his character. It doesn't ruin his progression in the company. He continues to be a top guy. He is definitely a top guy. So I love that. But yeah, I mean, I got to be honest with you. I'm definitely going to say that this show itself I'm going to give this a 4 3/4, just based off the last 3 matches alone. I'm going to give it 4 3/4 out of 5. I really thought that the stories, AEW's done a good job of moving away from professional wrestling and moving more towards story, which is something they've been attacked for a very long time. And I thoroughly enjoyed this show. It kept me captivated from beginning to end. Was I a little upset that a certain wrestler was allowed to compete? Yes. But for the rest of it, I thought it was very story driven, and I thought that this was a pretty solid end of the year show. It was really good. And Kervin, agree you. Yes, I do believe AEW has gone kind of cold, and I think that we're going to go into the new year with a new champion. Edge and Christian are going to kill it with their story, so I think there's a lot of high hopes with Swerve and Adam Page. Where MJF is going to be, I think they're about to pick up. Business is about to pick up if the Jericho news doesn't hurt the company.
Yeah, it's going to depend a lot on what happens there and what's done about it. Yeah, for me, I think the show was like a lot more about, turning the company in a certain direction than it was necessarily having, like you said, incredible matches. At this point, I'd like to point out that I did not, in fact, challenge Samoa Joe for the title. That's not what's wrong with my eyes. I just don't sleep. So I'm looking at them and it looks like I've got the shit kicked out of me. I'm good. But yeah. Yeah, I feel like they turned a corner.
Mm-hmm.
I, like you, would have made a different decision with a certain individual.
Yes.
The only thing I can think of to say that I'm not going to get into it. It's weird to me that they didn't.
Yeah,
but then they have more information than we do.
Yeah, I mean,
so
let's just touch on that, and then we'll the last thing we'll talk about is Tony Storm's media scrum. So we end on a Yeah, we're just gonna just what we just talked about in text. Um, so Tyler and I, before we jumped on live here, we both agreed that whether or not Jericho is guilty or not guilty, the right decision by the company would have been to pull him from the card and just kind of tell people that a third party is going to make an investigation. This is in no way means that Jericho is guilty, but we are taking this accusation seriously. They did not do that. As a matter of fact, they did quite the opposite. Not only did he work, the fans in attendance were chanting his song, which they were because I watched it this morning. But Tony Khan was very flippant about this during the media scrum, said that AEW is the safest place in the world to work. So, I mean, obviously, we disagree. Not with the safe part, we don't know. We don't know any professional wrestlers that are there. I mean, I guess I can reach out to Jay and see if he responds to me to ask him if he'll talk about anything, uh, if he's willing to or not. But, you know, I don't know. I can't speak to the safety or lack thereof in the company, but what I can say is it would have went a long way, and I wouldn't be surprised if just pulling him, making an investigation would be enough for the abused victim. Like if it was like, hey, this guy's finally getting what's coming to him, and this is good enough for me. They're investigating it. So if somebody else comes out, I don't have to say anything. But at the time, it just looks like the claims or what is made about him is not being taken seriously. So, but yeah, moving on. Let's close up the show with Tony Storm, dude. We need to talk about how this is a. I believe that AEW might have come out of nowhere with one of the greatest characters we've ever seen in any women's division. This is straight up like out of the person she called out was Wendy Richter, which was hilarious.
Yeah.
But this is straight up like out of like Mulholland Drive. Like this is like Citizen Kane. This is like It's a Wonderful Life. Like what she's been able to do is combine old school movie feel with professional wrestling in such a brilliant way, man. I mean, I gotta be honest with you, man. Like I can see her main eventing pay-per-views for this company in the future. What do you think?
Yeah. I'm not a movie buff like you, so to me, I liked the direction they were going when she was clearly going off the rails there after All In.
Yeah.
I think it's gone a bit far for my
Oh.
taste.
Yeah, I mean, you said something about that earlier, but I thought you were just like, just about the current story, the current matchup with her with Rio. I didn't realize that you felt that way about the entire character.
I don't like the black and whites. I don't know. I guess maybe I'm taking it too seriously. I just think she's better than that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, all right, so to steal Patty's line again, since we're gonna keep mentioning the guys from the other show, Patty and Fernando. Patty and me grew up watching wrestling together, and the one thing that he is already there that I have just now started to get towards is he makes this clear. Like I've already watched my 10,000 hours of professional wrestling. Now I need another reason to be invested. I don't need to watch that classic Brian Pillman tribute show with William Regal and Voldemort at the end of the match. I don't need to watch that every single match. I need another reason to be invested. And
You're right.
to me, I've always felt like Tony was one of the better in-ring performers. I've always felt like she was a better in-ring performer than Rhea Ripley. I've always felt like she was better than Piper Niven. I've always felt like she was watching her early, like Tony time. I always felt like she was absolutely killer. And it just felt like it never worked for her. I mean, dude, she had a feud with Charlotte Flair, and she couldn't do anything with it. She got to hit Charlotte in the face with a pie. Like, she looked like a superstar at Survivor Series because of her in-ring performance and how sick her German suplexes look and how safe they look as well. And they couldn't do anything with it. And even AEW, she was just another person. And now she gets a character, and now she's clearly like tops of the division. And I wouldn't be surprised if people like, Sarah Deeb, Mickey James, Gail Kim, Soraya, like all of these people are providing her with like so much input. And I mean, we've seen Sarah Deeb, former member of the Straight Edge Society. She knows how to sell a character and to sell character well. And Soraya, able to sell her like outcast character really well. Gail Kim, a former diva who probably gives her mannerisms. No, but I'm sure like their relationship with TNA probably like that's just my opinion. And obviously,
I wasn't sure.
Yeah, and if we're going back to 2000 time, like anywhere from 2000 to 2005, we need to be clear that the original stalker, the original psychopath was Mickey James. So like, that was her character. It was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. So we're getting to see a version of Toni Storm that's just great. And I feel like fans appreciate her more. She looks phenomenal in the ring. She keeps herself well together. And, it's a version of the character that I truly enjoy. And I got to be completely transparent here. I made it my mission after Bray Wyatt passed away that I will never, ever judge someone based on a character and their in-ring performance ever again. Because I did that during Bray's entire run, and it's something I regret, where I just didn't appreciate so much his character, and it was always bothering me what he was able to do in the ring or lack thereof. And I never wanted to have that feeling again. So when I'm watching Tony, I'm thinking to myself, if Bray was alive right now, I feel like this would be his favorite character on television. Like, I feel like he would be tweeting about this right now. Like, what Tony's doing is amazing. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's something like Julia Hart. When I look at her, I'm not looking at her in-ring performance. I'm looking at this would make Bray proud. When I'm looking at stuff like that. Abaddon. Like, when I'm like, I really think that TNA they're doing everything that fans have attacked them for. They are giving us more character-driven wrestlers, and we can't ask for this. We can't spend time asking for this, and then we're finally getting it, and now we're going to shit on it. So that's how I feel. That's my opinion of it.
Okay, I can't hate on that, and also it's given jobs to like longtime vets who otherwise had never gotten the opportunity in the mainstream U.S. like Luther, like that guy was in FMW and a big star in the Calgary area, and never really got a break until even when he was in AEW until he became her butler. So it's providing opportunities for other people as well, and that's great. One thing you mentioned Bray Wyatt. One thing I wanted to touch on. We did our favorite entrances the other day, and it slipped my mind completely. But he's got to be up there.
Who? Bray?
Yeah.
The Follow the Buzzards, right? You're not talking about the Fiends, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, not the Fiend.
Yeah. No, I've actually spent a lot of time on my personal YouTube page, not our YouTube page here for the show, but on my personal YouTube page, I've gone back and I've watched a lot of Follow the Buzzards, Bray Wyatt to see, and I've actually realized that I've always kind of felt like his character has been great, but there are some matches that are hidden gems in there that people actually don't like. I sat down and I actually thought this to myself, like, I don't think him and Randy Orton have had a bad match. Even their final match with the Fireball, I felt like was good too. MJF and his other wrestling promoter, old buddies, Alex Hammerstone, signed by Tony Khan in AEW last night. Ooh, Ramit, thank you so much for the comment. That's a little bit of breaking news. Oh, here we go. Oh, and he's got more. I think MJF's contract extension is long term. Okay, well, that's good. Some breaking news right there. I mean, obviously, we're gonna take that with a grain of salt. We really appreciate that, Ramit, you coming on the show and giving us that insight. But
it's funny. I was watching MLW after the scrum the other night.
Oh, okay. Well, that's cool. Well, yeah, I mean, that's very exciting.
Afterward.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Ramit, for that. Yeah, I mean, guys, anytime you want to do this, just let us know. And guys, please like, share, and subscribe to our page. We're looking to do like tiers of of workers on the show. That's what we're calling you guys, like the fans. We're calling them workers, just like professional wrestlers call each other. And what we're doing is like tiers of workers, so that way we can do it so you can actually pick a topic, and then depending on the tier that you are part of, you can either pick the topic in which we discuss on the show, or you can come on the show with us to discuss any type of wrestling topic you want. Whether it's something simple like, oh, I like this one wrestling match. This one wrestling match is my favorite match all time. I want to touch on it. Tyler and I will research that match if we haven't seen it already, and we will talk about it for you. We will sit there and we will talk to you. You can come on the show, and then also you can be a producer. We'll shout you out on the show. So thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. This has been our January 1st show. So our very first show of the 2024 year. Thank you so much for Kerwin Abreu for comments and liking our page. And thank you, Ramit Taneja, for commenting on I hope I pronounced both of your guys' name well. Gracias por todo. We're very happy to be on here, and we're looking forward to providing you with much, much more content this year. So thank you so much, guys. We're out.